Hello and welcome to Real Talkin' Fiction, the podcast where storytelling meets raw, unfiltered conversations. I'm Eddie Bowers, or Edward Bowers, as some of you guys might know me from my books. I'm here to explore the stories we tell, both real and imagined. From deep dives into some of life's tougher questions to thrilling fiction that I write. So hopefully that's going to keep you guys on edge. We're going to try and cover it all here. So sit back, hit that follow button, and let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone, to Real Talkin' Fiction. It's me, Eddie. And today I have another guest on. He is another author, and we're going to get to talk to him, know him a little bit better, and what it is he writes. We're also going to talk a little bit about some mental health type things today. So please, everybody who's listening, welcome Daniel. Daniel, would you mind just introducing yourself? Tell us about you, your books that you write, and things like that. So.
Well, first of all, hi, thanks for having me. I'm Daniel Camposano. I wrote a post-apocalyptic sci-fi novel.
Okay.
It's actually right here. It's called The Ones Left Behind.
Okay.
And I've been struggling with, mental health issues for a while, and this writing process was a bit of a catharsis, cathartic experience.
Right.
And that's why it was important for me to actually get it done.
Nice. I feel that. That's very similar to me. I find writing things like the psychological thrillers and the poetry that I do, it is very cathartic. Just finally being able to get all that out, at least on the paper. Whether somebody reads it or listens to me, that's fine.
Yeah.
But getting it out. And also talking about mental health, as I struggle with depression. Um, I also have multiple sclerosis, which kind of amplifies a lot of things for me, including my depression. So, it's a fun life. It really is. So, but real quick, where can people find your book and find you?
I am on Instagram and Threads. The handle is Tired Writer 0247.
Okay. All right.
And
Are you
like
on?
the number on that actually is from the book.
Oh, is it?
It's from something involving one of the characters. I decided to use that as my handle.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, do you want to go into that a little bit, or is that kind of like the surprise of the book?
Well, it comes up at some point. The character doesn't have a name. They
Okay.
just have a number that they were assigned. So that was the number that they were assigned uh before they get a name.
Right, right. So kind of like a concentration camp or prison type number, experiment number. I don't know.
Something like that,
Something
yeah.
like that. I'm close, just not hitting the nail on the head. No, that's awesome. So tell us more about your book, whatever you're comfortable with, just no spoilers, right? You don't want to ruin it.
Right. Well, first you're saying where to find it. It's available on Amazon.
Okay.
Uh, there's links in my bios for different social media if anyone is interested.
Right. And I'm going to go ahead and include links to your bios and everything in underneath this podcast as well as the YouTube channel. So hopefully some people, will check you out.
All right, that would be appreciated.
No problem.
So the book itself it's kind of a survival story.
Okay.
It's set in a post-apocalyptic landscape, and the character is you're introduced to this character. He's alone, and he's been alone for the last, I think, 15 to 20 years
Hmm.
with zero contact. He's been running from his past, from memories, from actual people, because something happened that he can't remember at the beginning of the book.
Right.
The
Okay.
trauma of it he shut it all down, shut it all out. All he remembers is I have to keep moving.
Okay.
And that's where you're introduced to him. And eventually he meets another survivor through a radio that he finds, not actually in person.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of have a rocky start talking, and he slowly warms up to her, and they actually manage to help each other.
Okay.
And the goal at some point is the Earth that they're on
Mm-hmm.
is subject to like meteor showers in certain areas. And this
Okay.
was all part of an alien attack that happened at some point in this Earth's history.
Okay.
And so, to try to escape his past and find a safe place, the person on the radio suggests, I can help you with the satellites that I have to cross this, meteor shower zone with
Mm-hmm.
some safety. And that becomes the goal at some point.
Nice. So you incorporate a bit of like mental health type of issues and possible solutions within your story, like or resolution, I guess, you know.
Yeah, like at the beginning, he's very shut down. He doesn't remember a lot of, people or places. He doesn't remember what happened to him. He just remembers something bad happened. He has these reoccurring nightmares that get worse the longer he stays in place. I guess the longer he gets comfortable, the more the anxiety grows and the nightmares
Okay.
get worse.
Okay. That sounds that I mean t I'm not a huge sci-fi guy, but that sounds very interesting. So, you know, and you said they can get it on Amazon.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So that's great. How long have you been writing for?
Well, I've been writing for about 15 years
Okay.
just for myself.
Hmm.
And for an attempt at publishing, this is probably my third attempt actually
Okay.
at writing a novel. But this is the first one that I felt strongly enough about that I actually went through with it. And
Okay. Okay. So is this like your only book that you got self-published right now?
yes, this is my only published work right now.
Okay. You working on anything else?
I have a few ideas kicking around. I've started a little bit on a different story,
Okay. Okay.
but I'm kind of trying to focus on promoting the ones left behind. So it's difficult to balance.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Tell me about it. So I'm not the world's best marketer, and I decided to this year challenge myself, like I always do. And I am putting out like I'm self-published like you are, and I'm putting
Right.
out like one at least one book a month. You know,
Wow.
I too have I've been writing for about 15, 16 years, so right around the same time you've been. And I used to write things just for myself, very similar, you know, just again, getting things out, you know. And just the end of last year, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna revisit a bunch of old stories I wrote, gonna freshen them up, make them something. And then yeah, sitting there marketing, one book. Like for instance, the first of this month, I released a psychological thriller called 86, and that book I was pushing it, and I've got one coming up on the first called Abaddon. It's a psychological thriller with a little bit of like demonic possession, influence, things like that. So a little, I guess you could say, supernatural type things,
Yeah.
but it's also a little bit of a love story, so to speak. Not a spicy romance. I don't do that. But and then my son and I've got an 8-year-old. Are you dead?
No.
Oh, okay. So I've got a 24-year-old, 22-year-old, reset 8-year-old. So that's been fun. Yeah, wow. I also have the two ex-wives to prove it. So, you know, but he decided that I needed to stop writing so many quote unquote scary books. So he came up with a cute little idea, and I did my best to take his idea and turning it into something. So in April on the 17th, I have my son's book. It's called Confusing Teleportation. Again, I'm horrible at marketing, and I'm trying to sit here and still market book, my book 86 as well as
Yeah.
Abaddon, and then And then I've got to start like ASAP, probably last week, marketing my book in next month. That's coming out on the first. And probably like you, a lot of other ideas rattling around in my head. I've got a book I'm working on with another friend. She's writing a like memoir self help type book
Mm,
about how like she lost her voice, so to speak. Like she just became very secluded, reclusive, isolated, and never spoke up. And then she just started questioning everything, all those steps, healing, and then gaining her voice back. And so writing that with her, my nephew, he hit me up and he's like, I got an idea. Everybody, once they find out you write books, they're like, I got an idea. So, working on that, and it's just constant marketing. It's almost like, when do I breathe? So, but no, that's sorry, I just took it over, didn't I?
fine. It's
So
interesting to hear.
it's I wouldn't recommend it. This was the dumbest challenge I ever made myself. And the problem is I don't back down from challenges. It's gotten me into a lot of
Mhm.
trouble, but hey, is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I get that, and then wanting to continue like on that journey or that high of promoting your current work, you know. Um, I don't know about you, but I find marketing, trying to quote unquote find your audience, that seems to be like the biggest struggle for me. So, like for writing for you, depending on what your goal with writing is, what would you say is the hardest thing besides writing it and making it cohesive? What's one of the hardest things that in the writing industry for you that you found to be the most difficult? Not impossible, just difficult.
I was actually surprised with how difficult it was going the publishing route, especially self-publishing.
Uh, yeah.
I very naively I had it in my head, okay, I'm gonna write and I'm just gonna sit in my room somewhere, write, and then send it out to the world. It'll be fine.
They're gonna love it.
Well, even before it gets to an audience, it's like, okay, now I have to edit it,
Hmm.
which means reading it a million times and
Then you're sick of your
self-publishing, it
own
becomes
story.
actually surprisingly, I didn't get sick of it, which
Right.
I'd say is a good sign.
Yes, I would say so. If you can kind of draw yourself in every single time, even though you wrote it,
Right.
you came up with it, that I think that's good.
But no, like for your question though, like I found having to do a lot of graphic design work that I had never done before. That was one of the harder parts about this process.
Right.
'Cause
So do you make your own covers?
I actually had my mother is like an amateur artist and she did the cover.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then I ran it through some editing programs that I have that, I changed it up just enough to look like a little more like what I had in mind.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
I mean, I don't have any funds for this, so this is all I have to do it all.
So you and I are on the exact same page. I literally the same. Like I similarly, the very first book I wrote was more of a self-help book, about the people in the world that they don't love themselves, and trying to gain that self-love. Obviously not hugging themselves, but that
Right.
that finding their value and just wanting to live another day, just one more day. That's enough to kind of spark the flame and get it rolling. And so I wrote a book that was basically like my beginning stages in that process. And I'm hoping that, some people who read it at the time, it was just, I was like, one person, just one, to impact that
Right. If
change.
you can find that one person.
Exactly. Like save, quote unquote, save one person with something you did, some sort of art or gesture. I was like, that's enough. But before I wrote that book and self-published it, I wrote basically a memoir, or I started writing a memoir. And that book, I want to say that one took me about 10 years. So if you don't mind me asking, yeah, too long, right? How long did it take you to when you came up with your idea for your book? Um, and I'm sorry, what was the title of it again?
The ones left
The
behind.
Ones Left Behind. Okay. I almost said just
Left Behind. That's a TV show, isn't it? So there you go.
Probably. I don't know.
Um, but how long did that one take you to write, like beginning to end, before editing?
It's well, I mean, the actual writing itself, I'd say took maybe about a year.
Okay. So obviously you put a lot more work into it before then.
Well, it's kind of the product of, like, this is going back to mental health issues.
Sure.
I was at a very low point.
Okay.
I was dealing with depression and anxiety that had me on medication because I could
Oh,
barely function without it.
right, right.
And it was around this time that I started to suspect that I might be autistic.
Okay.
And like I've actually posted about this, even though I'm undiagnosed. It's,
Hmm.
I'm reluctant to talk about it because of that. But at the same time, sometimes self-diagnosis can be valid.
I agree. I
So I,
agree.
I, I figured out I'm autistic. That's something
Yeah.
that I've been dealing with without realizing.
Hmm.
And like that low point that I was in was autistic burnout.
Oh, wow.
Like I had been masking for so long that it just finally all hit. And
Hmm.
I was in a very bad place.
Gotcha.
But I decided I wanted to try to climb out of that,
Hmm.
and figuring out the autism and how to accommodate myself
Hmm. Hmm.
actually was a great step in, that healing process. I was able to eventually get myself off the anxiety medication, and
Oh, wow.
it's still a struggle. I'm still learning new things that I struggle with, but that was the start. And so once that point happened, I was like, I want to get back into writing. I haven't written in a long time.
Hmm.
So I started journaling. I was like, okay, I'm just going to write whatever happened in the day
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
to get back in the habit. And that journaling process eventually turned into, I started looking inward.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to examine the emotions that affected me,
Right.
my whole life up to this point. And one of the big ones was that loneliness and that sense of isolation.
Hmm.
And I was thinking, I want to convey this to other people.
Okay.
And that's how I started thinking, okay, I'm going to write. So the idea for this story started with that concept of loneliness and isolation.
Oh.
And then, okay, what setting would be the best to show that?
Hmm.
Post apocalyptic.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild. That's awesome.
And it just kind of snowballed from there that I actually started writing. I don't even know sometimes where the ideas came from. It just
Too much
flowed out.
caffeine.
Sometimes the characters took over.
Yeah, they do that, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I could probably write something. Give me time. But right now, just hearing what you just said, self-diagnosis, yeah, of course that can be a little damaging, but I love the fact that you are able to, within those dark times, be able to recognize unhealthy patterns or obstacles even, and start working yourself to where you could either get over them, get around them, get through them. And I think that that's honestly, that in itself, besides the writing, I feel is a very powerful thing. You know, kudos to you, seriously. Um, I just being one who does deal with depression. I deal with it, I handle it not well sometimes. Yeah,
It's like, well,
is
I've
what it
got
is, right? Yeah,
scars to
yeah,
prove that it's hard to handle sometimes.
yes. But I find myself taking a lot of like my personal life experiences or the slight mental issues. I hate that. That sound makes me sound like I'm some sort of basket case. But in
I mean, I think all of us writers are probably somewhat basket cases. So,
you're probably right. But I found that like writing anything, poetry or whatnot, over this past year, because I would have to say that for me recently, I probably in the past 2 weeks just came out of the longest and worst depressive state I've ever been in. I've tried 15 years ago unaliving myself every night for like 2 years straight. Unfortunately, I killed my first marriage with that plus other things, and her, but I'm not going to get into that. But the writing that I did over this past year and a half, I feel, is just so much deeper. And like you said, my characters at times they just took over, you know, and it was like I found myself with some of them, even though they were darker stories, just being happier. It was like I finally got out what I had been feeling and going through,
Right.
and to be honest, I do interject myself. I don't know if you do, but I interject like myself into my stories and then making my characters, my protagonist win, or, that depression, making that my antagonist and making it lose. Like it gave me this sense of power over,
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So have you
I
ever
mean,
dealt with something like that when you were writing your book?
I yeah, I put so much of myself in this, like not directly like this is
Yeah.
a shot for shot me in there, but I'd
Yeah.
say most of the characters in the story are a piece of me.
Awesome.
Like that.
So they're not all as stunningly good looking as you and everything.
I think there was a moment I actually had so much trouble writing it, and I was in tears by the end of it.
Oh wow.
This was a nobody character. It was, well, they were supposed to be a nobody character at first, but just kind of a background to explain
Okay.
some things.
Okay.
And I started to like this character, and I knew how it had to go. This character ends up taking their own life.
Mm-hmm.
And writing it in such a visceral way that I do, this character took the way that I came the closest to
Gotcha.
succeeding.
Right.
And it was just so rough to get through, but at the same time, you get that out and it just
Hmm.
feels, you
Good.
just you feel it. It
Yes.
feels good, but it also doesn't feel good because of what you
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
wrote, what you just did. But it's
It's hard to explain in words.
hard to
Let you write
explain.
it. You could write it and explain it, I bet, but saying it is hard. I did something very similar in my book 86. You know, unfortunately, kind of like you, I was in that mindset when I
Yeah,
wrote him doing it, and it was weird. It was like after I wrote him doing it, like you, I felt sad. I was like, oh, that sucks. But I was like, thank God I haven't.
yeah,
I'm still here. Thank God I'm not him. Like he was a real person. But I make jokes about it, but it was, I probably didn't do as good as you at writing that scene, but it was really, really emotional to do that for me
yeah,
at least, But it again, catharticism, it was very cathartic, you know, to write a character who is so down on his luck. Not even that, just like life keeps kicking him in the groin when he's down. I mean, I would say that very, very similar to my story. The guy was divorced. He wasn't allowed to see his kid legally. It was just he'd gone from like highfalutin corporate American job, making good money, to waiting tables and being a bar back, you know, living
yeah,
in a dumpy apartment, things like that, and just lost everything. And the only person in his life that was actually there, he had a lot of people say, "Oh, I care about you," and all those
yeah,
words. Yeah, the cliche memes that we all see on social media. Don't give up. He only had his sister-in-law in his life saying, we've got this. She was kind of like his life preserver. And because of this curse really just messing with him more, I tried to correlate more depression being less of a mental issue, an emotional issue, and being more of a curse. It's weird.
mm,
I think I might have drank too much when I came up with that idea. Um, but having the, I guess, character in his life that I've always wanted in mine, and then
mm,
yeah, he pulls the trigger basically. Um,
yeah.
yeah, it was rough, but freeing at the same time, almost like I had finally taken some weight off of my shoulders,
Yeah.
you know? And it's like, I'm not sitting here trying to glorify that activity in someone's life, but I just felt as though with everything that I do on social media, it was important to put it out there that like this is what us men deal with. I understand women do too. I'm not discrediting them,
Yeah.
but we bottle it up, you know. I'm not sure about, the way you were
Until it gets
raised.
to that explosive
Yes.
action.
Like taking that Coca-Cola bottle, right? Shake it up and then pop that top. It's
Yeah.
everywhere. Everything's a mess. So, but yeah, it was freeing to put that out. And personally, so far, the people that have bought it, I've gotten great response. How is it with you? Like when you get a review, we're not going to talk about the 1 stars, okay? How about the 4s and 5s? When you get those 4 or 5 star reviews, how does that make you like feel about your story, your writing style, your art edits, just everything? Like encompass all of that in there. Like when you see those good reviews, what does that do for you?
First of all, the 4 and 5 star reviews are the
Yeah, let's
only
focus on
ones
the
I
good
have
ones,
right now.
okay? Oh, sweet. Awesome. Yeah, I got a 1 star. Eh,
But no, it's I still have that imposter syndrome where I'm
do
like,
you?
am I really worth putting this book out there? Should I be advertising it? Should I be pushing it? Should I be trying to get people to read it? And when you get those 4 and 5 star reviews talking about, what a good book it was, or how well written it
Yeah.
was, or the story stays with you after you finish,
Hmm.
and I'm just like, these are not people that have any reason to hype me up. These are not people that know me.
Hmm.
It's a stranger who read it and said this. And
Yeah.
so I'm trying to take that and get out of my own head about it.
Right.
Try to put that imposter syndrome away and say, well, no, because these people said, these nice things about it. These people liked it. So, I mean, it's definitely helpful getting those reviews to let me know that, hey, it is worth your
Yeah.
time.
That's awesome. Even so I'm strange in real life. I try to play normal on here, but no, the one book that I got a 1 star, the first 1 star I got was on a psychological thriller. And they were like, this was disgusting. I can't believe you did that. I was like, thank you. Thank you.
I would have taken that as a good review.
At least it wasn't DNF, do not
Yeah.
finish. Ugh. But no, I'm the same way. It's like I've got not a huge presence, but I've got a decent presence on Facebook, or not Facebook. I'm sorry, TikTok.
Hmm.
And I mean, there were even people on my first book, that self-help book I was telling you about, and they're like, "Oh, we watch Eddie on TikTok, and he sewed this," and just the compliments. And not to sound like narcissistic, but it was like the genuineness of their comment about my genuineness. It
Right.
just it's hard to explain for me. It was just like, yeah, it felt good, but not in that narcissistic way. It wasn't like I was looking for other people's validation, you
Yeah.
know? But it was like these people like you, that's not my mama. That's not my best friend from elementary school. You know, this is a complete
Yeah.
stranger who watches me do stupid thirst traps or motivational stuff on TikTok. Um, and they're seeing who I really am, and then the way that they talked about my book was like, wow, it was just the compliments. It made it worthwhile, and kind
Yeah.
of started sparking. I had the ideas, but it sparked more. It's like, Eddie, write more, you know. And so with what you've told me about your book, I'm gonna check it out. I'm not a huge sci-fi guy, but just like the basis of your protagonist, it's got me hooked already, and I'm gonna try it out. And I hope
Definitely appreciate hearing
anybody,
that.
I hope anybody listening to this or watching it on YouTube feels the same way, because guys like you who are willing to, in my opinion, take their own like mental health or whatnot or even that
Yeah.
topic and put it into stories, it's bound to help someone else, especially in my opinion, again, if your hero or whatever makes it out, you know.
Right.
So it's not very psychological of me to say it that way, but you know, and kind of like you, what I gathered in the few little like conversations we've had, mental health, I'll say this, seems to be a pretty big thing with you. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, it is. It wasn't always,
Okay.
we were all raised to, bottle up our emotions, and
Man up.
you're supposed to idolize the stoic man, not the
Hmm.
emotional man. And just since I started unmasking, since I started figuring out my own struggles, I've decided to embrace all the things that we were told not to. I
Yes.
have no problem crying if something makes me sad.
Hmm.
I don't hide what I'm going through from people anymore. Like, I will even talk to my nephews and nieces about, my depression or
Hmm.
suicide attempts, because I want them to know that if they're feeling anything like that, they're not alone and it's okay to talk
Yes.
about it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a powerful thing, and especially like I said, writing about it. Not to take it off that and go back to your books, but writing about it, I wonder if that helps other people realize they're not alone, because they've got to think, well, this author, he wrote so vividly about it. I wonder if, he's going through it. And if he is or did, I'm not alone in that. I believe that even if they relate to the fictitious character in that way, that's still helpful, you
Yeah,
know.
that's definitely one of the hopes of putting this out there, is that
Hmm.
somebody will read it, and maybe if they see themselves, they'll realize I'm not alone.
Right. That's powerful, I think. I like that. So you need to go write some more books now. But and that's a similar. It's amazing. Like we aren't friends outside of this podcast. I mean, we off of a post started talking. One of mine on Threads, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And just the similarity between what you're writing, how you're writing it, and me. I mean, 15 years of writing. It's wild how connected just on that level you and I are. you
Yeah.
know and that right there, I hope for anybody listening, that reinforces I'm not alone, you're not alone, maybe they're not either. Again, it goes back to that, if this book can just help one person, you
Right.
know and okay, first off, you got to promise you're not going to make fun of me for this, right? I'm 46 and I'm on TikTok. Yeah, you're hesitant on that. I'm 46 and on TikTok. How immature is that? So anyway, when the shutdown was happening, I was doing a live, just talking to people, and man, it was wild. I had that. I've got some 5-star reviews. I'm going to toot my own horn, but you know, I'm on there and I'm just like, yeah, writing this book, if it helped one person, boom. I had probably about 60, 70 people tell me how their book helped them, or my book helped them, helped their relationship, stop them from pulling the trigger. I don't know if you're a Christian. Okay. And I don't mean, if you're not a believer, no judgment at all. Okay. But I had one lady say that my book helped her find God. And for me, that was huge, you
Yeah.
know? I mean, I was blown away basically just by the number of people that were popping on and telling me how my book had impacted them in a positive way, you know? And I'm sitting there like you. I have no problem crying. I got tears coming down my eyes. I'm struggling to say stuff. I do that anyway because of my MS, but just the emotional toll that took on me was awesome. But I was tired at the end of that.
Imagine.
So, but like I said, like you, man, I watch Old Yeller. I need a box of tissue at the end of that movie. So, but so like, do you do any other like outreaches for like mental health, or anything, or is it mainly like just advocacy quietly, or are you a men's mental health advocate or anything like that?
I don't have anything like official or out to a lot of public. I've started with my Threads account. I've decided I am tired of seeing so much negativity. I'm going to start trying
Mm,
to put some positivity out. So
yeah,
my posts this last week have been kind of in the vein of pushing forward more positive ideas, just letting
right,
people know you're loved, you're seen, you're valid.
right.
That's the extent of what I've done
Mhm.
as far as advocacy goes, or trying to
Right,
get it out there. Mainly it's just if I talk to you, person to person, and the issues come up, I have no problem talking to you about it, listening to what you have to say.
right. So basically, give everybody on the internet your phone number, and if they got a problem, call you. Got it. No, no, that's good. That's kind of how I started too. Just some memes or whatever, funny jokes, I got your back, things like that.
Yeah.
And after about a year of posting things like that, relatively consistently, my DMs were blown up. Yeah, I had guys, and not sound conceited, there were some ladies, but it was men, just going through it, based off kind of like what you were saying. We were taught stop crying, but
Yeah.
I broke my ribs. Stop crying. Put some Windex on it,
Yeah.
man up and things like that. And for me, having been divorced twice, going through two horrible custody battles, having my
Oh,
older two taken away from me, no contact for like 90 days. Those are my babies, you know? And then getting MS, and because of my MS, I had a fallout a little while ago. It wasn't that bad, you know, but I currently am not legally allowed to be with my son, who's 8, by myself. And so, I would call myself like a amateur men's mental health and amateur father's rights advocate. I'm constantly, sporadically though, putting out content about like you. One more day, keep going. It's okay to I guess be emotional a little bit.
yeah.
I mean, you don't want to dump on someone, but to talk about the tough things in life, male, female, father, mother, divorced, married, just talk about it, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, you think about like the suicide rates being as high as they are for men. I think it's like what, out of 800,000 deaths a year, like 80% of that, 70, I think 70, 75. Anyway, still too high. 70,
Yeah.
80% men, because we refuse to, because of our upbringing, talk about the stuff. And it's great to meet someone like you who's like, I'll talk about it. It's comforting. It's like there's another person. This is great. The more people we can get to say, I'll talk about it, I think the better off we are.
I think a good place to start with anyone who's still in that, you know, you got to be a man's man kind of place is you have to be allowed to feel your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to be sad. You're not allowed to be angry. You're not allowed to be anything.
No,
And we need to experience that feeling if we're going to
right.
be able to move past it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
something that a lot of people can't do because it's been hammered out of us.
Yeah. And like as a dad, I do my best with my boys. 'Cause like I said, I've got a 25 or 24-year-old son. He's engaged. I'm so happy. And then I got my 8-year-old, and I'm just like, okay, there's something emotional going on. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And my son somehow picked up, not to blame my dad, but I think because of his grandfather, men don't talk about it. And I'm just like, dude, I mean, this poor kid, when he was 11, walked in on one of my attempts.
Mm,
Yeah. So first off, as a dad, I now feel guilty about that in that moment.
right.
But then it was like, dude, you know, you need to talk about it. If you ever feel this way, and he's like, I'm good. And I'm like, you don't understand. If you ever feel this way, you talk to me.
Yeah.
You know, I've been through it. I've been there. Just talk. You know,
Yeah.
and talking doesn't always help. I don't think it hasn't for me all the time,
No.
but but for the most part, it does. You can at least release it. You know, that pressure you were talking about earlier. You know,
Yeah.
and I just I could go on for hours about this topic. Sorry.
That's fine.
Maybe I got to have you on for part two, right? I just in joining other groups of other men like you and I, who, yeah, you know, the stoic male, blah blah blah, but at the same time, they're in there talking about, yeah, I stubbed my toe. Ooh, old Yeller made me cry. I was watching a Hallmark movie. I went through a whole box of tissues. It's like we have emotions
Yeah.
and we're starting to talk about them. Not well. I think women they hold the crown when it comes to talking about their emotions in a healthy way. And us guys nowadays are starting to release some of this. And I'm hopeful. I'm praying to see like the suicide numbers come down, both men
Yeah.
and women. You know, um, I mean, it's just wild, wild. Like I said, I could go on tangents for hours and probably make no sense. And my brain will start running. And then because of this MS, I'll start stuttering and stumbling on words. And then everybody's going to think it's a comedy show. But, um, but like I said, I love the fact that you made your main character in your book, you know, not Mr. Thor or, you know, Fabio or something. You made him
Right.
normal and relatable. So, you know, and inserted yourself a little bit into the character. And I think that just gives him more realism and again relatability. So, you know, but hopefully. So what is like out of your book besides entertainment and the fact that I'm sure it's like amazing and you want money and all that, what is like one thing that you hope readers get from your book?
I mean, I think it's kind of like we've already discussed.
Okay.
I want them to realize that they're not alone, that it might feel like you're the only person in the world, set in this post-apocalyptic landscape or something, but you're not. We're here. You just have to reach out. I mean,
Hmm.
you have to find someone that you can talk to.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's almost like I feel like sometimes posting up wherever pictures of me walking around with a sign that says "Talk to me." You
Yeah.
know, I mean, just that ridiculous. You know, you see the guys on social media, free hugs, so you know, or the homeboy standing there blindfolded holding $1,000 versus roses, and see what people take first. But it's yeah, it's we need to really open up those doors of communication, not just between men and women, but between men and men.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, I don't know if you dealt with this, but just the hazing, you know, that even I did to some of my male friends when they tried to talk about their emotions. You know,
Yeah.
oh, that sucks. Man up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we definitely did that when we were, high schoolers.
Oh
And
yeah. The 90s, we were the kings of that.
oh yeah,
I
90s,
forgot to
early
ask you, but
2000s.
yeah, I forgot to ask you how old you are. I'm probably like ancient, but you know.
Oh no, I'm 39 this year,
Oh,
so
okay, okay, cool. So I'm a little older.
I feel
That's
like
fine.
I'm
Getting up
older
there.
too. So
No, again, I hope that, you know, when your book just blows up, New York Times bestseller, go get it. So, and I'm really interested now in getting a copy of it and reading it myself, you know. Um, I know that like I'm not the world's best, you know. I mean, I've been not to toot my own horn again, which I do a lot, but like some of my beta readers that I've got, they're like, oh, you give off Frank Miller vibes, Stephen King vibes. I'm like, I am no Stephen King, but thank you. I will accept that. You know,
Oh, heck yeah.
I mean, who would turn that down,
Right.
right? Or Anne Rice, or I mean, James Patterson, any of them. But
I think the one that I got was a friend of mine read a short story I did, and he said it gave Lovecraft.
oh
And I
wow,
was just like, oh, thank you.
oh, dang! Now I got to do some more work. No, uh, but no, I honestly, I hope that your book does wonderful and like does blow up, you know, and
Thank
you
you.
get all the accolades possible. I am definitely going to do my best here in the next couple of months, pick a copy up off Amazon. Like I said earlier, and for anybody who's listening, the links to his books and your social media, if you're okay with it, so people can connect.
Yeah, it's
I'm going to put
perfectly
that all
fine.
in the description, you know. Um, and I again, I've repeated myself. That's the MS. Um, you know, I wish you all the success in the
Thank
world.
you.
So and keep doing what you're doing on threads, you know, pushing that positivity. This world needs a lot more of it.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, you know, um, like I'm even myself switching gears and putting more stuff out that is more true to me and more of that motivational push, you know,
Yeah,
to whoever is down and out, you know, and hopefully help lift them up, inspire them, and get them to keep going, take one more step forward. I think that is even in my down times, you know, like those dark moments. It's like if I can find one little thing above and beyond my kids, got three of them, you know, and they're one of the major reasons I haven't ended everything. Yeah, I say it this way: I want to normally, but I'm too scared. I'm too much of a chicken, you know. But yeah, like I said, I just finding those little shimmers of light and trying to hold on to them, even in the darkest moments, is one of the most crucial and important things, in my opinion, to do when you're in those situations. You
yeah,
know,
definitely.
I'm a lover of like Stephen King. Admittedly, my mom was. Um, Edgar Allan Poe is probably my favorite poet. You know,
Mm.
and I love that darker, like more sad stuff, but
Oh,
still being able to
definitely.
find that beauty and that light that is buried in there. You know, you move one little word, one little piece of dirt, and boom, it's a shining light, you know, and it's like physical activity, you know. You want to get stronger, you got to put yourself intentionally under pressure. Otherwise,
Yeah,
you're never going to get stronger. So I look at that way, you know, that way with like mental health, you know, to get emotionally tougher and mentally stronger, you know, you've got to put yourself into those uncomfortable situations. And
absolutely.
yeah, and I do jujitsu, and I can't remember exactly who said this, but one of the Gracies said you've got to be comfortable in uncomfortable positions, and I think that holds so true when it comes to mental health. If you can become comfortable, not complacent, not, you know, yeah, I love being depressed, but if you can become comfortable and not freak out so bad, you're going to get stronger. And those moments aren't going to be as devastating
Right.
for you, you know. But
Well, that's
that's
what I was saying
my
earlier. We
take.
need to learn how to experience our
Yes.
feelings.
Yes, you did.
That's
And you're
how
right.
you learn to be comfortable in the
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable, is by
Yeah.
experiencing it, by letting yourself sit in that depression and that anger and the anxiety, whatever. And
Yeah.
that's how you learn how to pull yourself out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, I'm sure there are people. I've yet to meet anybody who's going to pull me out of my depressive funk.
Hmm.
You know,
Right.
thank God I don't deal with anxiety to the level that some people do. I'm kind of normal with that, if you will. Just things make me anxious. You know, it's just life. But to sit there and eat cereal and all of a sudden you're anxious over that for no reason, I don't know what that experience is like. So I could only imagine. you know.
It can be fun.
Really? Let me sign up. No, I mean, obviously, anxious. Putting my book on KD. I use KDP
Yeah, same.
for. Oh, okay. So you do the exact same. Okay, and so I get anxious then, but I'm putting my heart out. I'm putting my
Yeah.
soul into those books, and I'm putting out that vulnerability. And then I'm on here or any social media talking about how every character has a little piece of me, and now I'm putting that out, and I'm always a little anxious that people are going to I guess put the puzzle together and figure out who I am. So,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, like I said, so right now you've got the one book that's on the
Right.
market, kicking butt, taking numbers, getting all those 4 and 5 star reviews. Um, and you said that you're kind of working on a second book or an idea for a second book.
I do have an idea. Yeah, it's kind of weird place right now. I was thinking of a story from the perspective of a cat,
Oh, nice. I
like
like it.
following their experiences with their person. So they're going to see
Oh,
all the
cool.
depression, all the different things, and to that small animal, it might look more monstrous, more sinister,
Oh, I like
and
that.
just kind of a way to explore some of those issues again,
Yeah,
just
that's
from a different perspective.
yeah. I like that idea.
It's just trying to
That you
figure out
could
how
have a
to
lot of
make it
fun with
work.
that one. Oh, yeah. But that could be a lot of fun. I could see that, trying to create the like mentality of the cat and like the
Yeah.
innocence of the cat, seeing
Well, I wrote what was probably going to be the first chapter already,
okay.
and it starts off with the cat is having a conversation with death.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, you're going to know from the start that this cat is going to die by the end of the
Oh
story
no, really? Okay.
because I mean, he's there talking to death at the very
Yeah.
beginning,
Yeah. Wow.
and it's just kind
Man.
of a playful back and forth, and then he's a cat, so mid conversation he stops and is just staring off into space, and death is like, "What are you looking at?" And then he just starts grooming himself. So, I mean, you got to have moments like that too, where you're showing
Right.
that it is still just the
It is
cat.
still a cat. No, I love that, man. I love that. Yeah, I've never it's always been humans, angels,
Yeah.
demons, spirits. So, man, you're making me want to go back to like round one again. Get more creative. But no, I do. I love that idea, something totally not human, experiencing human emotions from the other side and how that impacts him, I guess,
Yeah.
and how
Like
he views it. Like you said, more
something that's going to be
monstrous.
tough for this is I was kind of thinking he's not going to know what the
Yeah.
person is saying. It's going to sound like gibberish. So I'm going to kind of have to create a gibberish language to go along with
Oh,
it that will slowly, he understands, starting with food or, his name or whatever.
okay.
And
I
you
like
slowly get
that.
to the point where he understands as human.
I like that. That is, man, that is just it's kind of mind blowing for me. I'm more of a dog guy, so it's like, my son had what's called SVT, my oldest, supraventricular tachycardia. It was a heart problem.
Yeah.
And when at the time, my wife, my first ex, um, sorry, this stupid thing, I didn't have it plugged in the whole way. Um,
Mm.
it's like battery low. But when he was having, I guess an episode would be the best way to describe it. My wife's dog would just sit on her stomach. And it was like she knew every single time the
Yeah.
dog that my son had something going on. So it's like it's really cool then to think writing from the perspective of the animal and trying to take all those types of things into consideration. Like you were saying, when we say good cat, what does the cat hear? Is it gibberish? Like, are we speaking some foreign language that sounds like an alien? I love it. The best of luck on that one. I couldn't do that. So, straight up,
We'll find out if I can.
I You will. You got this. I expect to see it in like the next 2 years. So now, do you write under a pen name or do you use your name?
I thought about it. I kind of went back and forth. Said, you know what? To heck with it. I'm just going to use my name. There's no point.
Same. Same. I'll take the glory. I'll take the fame. No, that's great. Again, because I've already taken up a lot of your time, and I appreciate every second you've given me. I really do. I've enjoyed the conversation. And for any of my listeners here, again, just look in the description. I'm going to give you guys links to check Daniel out. Go check his book out. Buy his book. One of the best things I think so far that I've found for us indie self-published authors, reviews.
Yeah, definitely.
Getting those reviews. Obviously, that's helpful. Your opinion, man, besides buying your book, that's going to be great too. What is one of if you could say anything to anybody that would really help you and your writing career out, what would you ask people to do for you?
I mean, like, obviously, you don't want to just ask, give me money, give me money. So, because not
Right.
everyone can. Just
No, and I sound like a beggar.
post about it. If my book sounds interesting to you, talk to somebody about it. Post it on
Yes.
your social media. Do what you can to try to spread the word without costing yourself any money. I mean,
Right. Yeah. Word of mouth is one of the best, known kinds or types of advertising, you
yeah,
know? Um, like actually you just reminded me probably I want to say a month ago, I'd posted up like a list of I want to say like 10 things that I could do for you, which admittedly I have not done. I'm sorry. But that my friends and family could do that are free. Repost, follow, follow your social media, repost your stuff, comment on it, feed the algorithm. And then
yeah,
talk about it, you know? And since your stuff's available on Amazon, I'm not sure if
yes.
you know this, people could just put it in their cart, not buy it, just put it in the cart. And that tells the Amazon algorithm, so to speak, that there's
That
interest in
there's
your book.
interest.
And so it continues to push that. And that nice little merry-go-round at the bottom, when people are looking books up, yours pops
Yeah,
up more. And that doesn't cost me anything to do. So I'm gonna go fill my cart up with like your book. And just the other day, I interviewed a lady out of PA named KJ Pritchett. She writes more like young adult
yeah.
fantasy, and whew, that's another book I gotta buy. she's making a trilogy, and she's got a master's in poli sci and psychology. And so she takes like that type of stuff and adds all those types of factors into the books.
Hmm.
And I'm not sure how big your book is, but hers was chunky, bro. Do you mind holding up for the YouTube channel? Can you hold your book up again and show it to us again? I'm sorry, making you look like QVC. I
It's
like the cover. Ooh, yeah, okay.
that's stupid thick, but I mean,
Yeah, stupid. How many pages is it, if you don't mind me asking?
it was 240 something, I think.
Okay,
240 exact.
nice. And is that 6 by 9 or is it like 5.5 by 8.5?
I think it was the 6 by 9.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So like my earlier books, like last year and beyond that I put out, and I think a couple this year, like 240, 250, 6 by 9. Um, but I actually, again, I am a man of faith. I'm not a priest. I'm not a pastor. I still drop F-bombs. Enjoy a beer here and there, mainly bourbon. Um, but like I've got this 7 book series that I'm working on, and it is based off the book of Revelations, right?
Mm,
The 7 seals. Even if you're not a follower or a believer, everybody's heard of the apocalypse. And
right.
so I took one of the 7 seals and I am writing a book for each one and making it futuristic, like mixing AI and bright neon lights. But each one of those books I've really expanded. Like the first one is I want to say like 485 pages and 170,000 words, and I don't know what's going on with me. Help me. um, my books have doubled, tripled in size, You know, I don't know what's going on with me. So I'm gonna blame the MS in case the books aren't good. But it's just I wanted to start writing books that were easily readable. Again, getting that audience that if whatever I write does help that one person. And now it's like, well, if it helps a person but entertains somebody else, bonus. So I've made them more in depth, and I typically go 6x9, so all my stuff looks like really thin, like a kid's book. But it's so much fun to write and tell these stories, in high
Definitely.
school. Hmm?
So definitely, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I used to do creative writing classes in high school, and I wouldn't say that's when I started writing, because according to my mom, I used to write little stories about aliens ever since I was a kid. But I really got more involved with writing, similar to you, 15 years ago, about 16, 15 years ago, and probably the past 2 years is when I personally decided I wanted to do this. Yeah, this was I want to do it in such a way that I can make some money off of it, not just because I'm a greedy Jew, you know, but because I feel like my art has reached some sort of level to where I'm not dealing with that imposter syndrome anymore. And no offense, bro, if you've got 4 and 5 star reviews, you're not an imposter. All right. I mean, honestly, whatever it's worth to you, clearly the art that you're producing is valuable. It is something that people want to, need to, and should read, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe a little biased because, you put a little mental health in there. So I could totally be biased here, but I definitely, I want anybody who's listening to this or watching it on YouTube, go check your stuff out. Put it in the cart. Buy it. Buy is it on ebook?
There's an ebook and the physical. Yeah.
Okay. Do you hardback, paperback, both?
Just the paperback. I was
Okay.
having issues with the formatting for the hardback and just
Oh, isn't that the worst? Like you go through all this time, right? You create this just amazing cover and it works perfect for paperback. You go to the hardback and half your title's gone.
yeah, and I was so frustrated at that point. I'm not going to do a hardback anymore. Never mind.
You're like, forget this. Yeah, I create all of my own covers, like from finish to end, the artwork and everything like that. And it's frustrating, I create this cover and it lines up all perfectly, almost the exact same quote unquote, dimensions for hardback books. And then when I go into KDP and I upload it, half my stinking title is gone or my name's missing. And I'm like, yes, this is just written by some random nobody, you know?
Yeah.
So then I have to go recreate the whole thing over again. And then, yes, I decided to get even more artsy instead of just like most of my books are just the picture on the front and then black on the back with like little bio, my picture, and description of the book. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to get crafty, right? I love challenges. So I started off trying to make these like wraparound covers to where part of the image is still on the back. So there's something aesthetic and
Yeah.
visual and grabbing, hopefully. And it was all wrong. The first one I did, I think I had to recreate that cover 20 times. You know, I was about to
I
tear.
got really
Oh,
lucky
just
with
like you.
mine.
Okay. So you're better than me. I love it. I love it. Seriously. That was the biggest struggle for me. Creating
Yeah.
the right sized image, you know. I think the 19th time I was like, I got this. I got this. Nope. 2 black stripes down the side. I'm like, God, please. Do I not know how to use a tape measure? So, but again,
Thing it's not very user friendly, that KDP site. So
no. But
trying to
I'll
figure
be
out what
honest.
it actually wants is
Right. It wants a cookie when you're done, I think. Um,
yeah.
First book that I put out, I had initially put out on Lulu. And when I read and researched, it was one of the most premier sites. That was
Right.
so difficult. Like no matter what format, it would say upload a PDF. I upload everything in a PDF. It's like, nope, not the right format. I'm like, it says PDF. So I think I'm just brain damaged, bro. That's my problem. So, but I've been rambling on. I really want to connect even more with you, and maybe when you start more writing on your second book, keep me posted, and I'd love to have you back on and kind of start like have you talk more about that process, you know? So,
Yeah. Okay.
but a couple more like fun, if you will, annoying questions. If you could, I know this is a weird one, possibly, any author, any author throughout time in the world, if you could sit down and have dinner with any author, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
See, I know this is one of those questions where you're supposed to like, oh, my hero is this person or that person, but
Just fun.
it's like, what would I talk to, Stephen King or somebody who's really made it? What would I talk to them about? So, if I could have dinner with any author, I would pick any of the indie authors that I've met since I've been on Threads,
Nice. No, I like
and
that.
just we can go sit, have some food, commiserate about what we're dealing with,
Right.
and just
But
there'd be more of a connection than
yeah.
one of
Then
these
like,
untouchable greats that
yeah, like
they're not
seriously,
even
what
going
are
to
you gonna do?
remember what it's like to
Hey,
be where we're
Steven,
at.
my cat just passed away. How can I have it come back to life? You know? No, I agree. Like I would love to face meet some of the indie authors that I've met, like you, on Threads, and just talk normal talk.
Yeah,
Whether it's about books or anything, get to know you as a person, you know, and have that real, tangible conversation and meaningful conversation. I mean, yeah,
absolutely.
it'd be hella sweet to sit down. I had a 30-minute conversation once with Anne Rice. Whoop-de-doo. She told me never read any of her books. Legit. She's like, I was 17 and I went to a book signing for my mom. And she goes, so which one of my books is your favorite? And I said, I like the movie Interview with the Vampire. And she goes, you've never read my books. I said, no. Or, I was like, I've never read a single word. And she goes, don't. She goes, they're disgusting. They're horrible. And she's going, and I'm like, I like this. I'm like, you got me hooked, lady. But yeah, what would I talk to her about at dinner as Eddie Bowers, the guy who's written X number of books, and I don't have movie deals. I'm not writing Queen
Right.
of the Damned, you know? So I like that though. Yeah, sitting down with an indie author, which while I was insulted, I promoted once. I put up there on a post that I was an indie author. Here's my book. This is what it's about. Person comes back, keyboard warrior, I guess. They were like, oh wow, what a creative way to say you're a nobody. First off, I want to stop laughing because that was funny in my mind. I was like, no, no, no. Indie author just means New York Times bestseller before the plot twist, you know? And honestly, wherever you're at, I hope that is something that happens in your life and to your book, and I do wish that for every indie author that I've ever met, you know? And
Yeah.
again, everybody listening to this, check out the links in the description, check his book out. Go ahead, if you want, show it again and tell us the title again.
Is The Ones Left Behind.
Very nice. I like that image. So, and if you don't mind, real quick, I know people can not be lazy. They can go look it up themselves. How much does your book go for?
The ebook is $9.99
Okay.
and the paperback is 16.
Oh, okay. 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 So that's not bad, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say I've
So,
seen them go higher, I've seen them go lower. I figured somewhere middle ground.
right. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, but y'all seriously go check Daniel's book out. Hit him up, let him know what you think of it, give him a review. For those of you who don't have the $16, $17, put it in your cart. The, I guess, amount of effort that takes is so minimal to the amount of benefit Daniel gets from that. Just simply putting it in your cart. It feeds the algorithm, so to speak, and we are an algorithm-centric society now, you know. But right, but it helps his books out. It lets people know that there's interest. And so I'm probably going to run to Amazon, throw it in my cart right now tonight. So, but it takes more than one. So,
Yeah.
share his post, go follow him, help support another indie author. I'm assuming you're not a starving artist, but the more we can support you, the better off you are. And, even if you become a New York Times bestseller and my books just get burnt, I do. I wish you the best. And again, I thank you so much for your time tonight. And honestly, I look forward to keeping in touch more. And I really want to hear about this second book. Like, you got me hooked already. That the idea, a cat dealing with a human who, dealing with mental health, and just seeing it as that. Would you say it was more sinister and like a monster?
Just
I love that.
maybe it looks like some kind of monster to the cat or something. Yeah, I don't know. I
Oh
haven't
yeah,
figured out
yeah,
how to.
yeah. Keep me posted for real. I'd
Sure.
really appreciate that. I mean, through Threads or IG or whatever. So,
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be like a professional email, I guess is my point. So, but Daniel, thank you again for just saying you're willing to be on this. And
Thank you for having me. I mean,
dude, again, I want to have you on again. Either more reflection on the first book, more mental health talk, or insights on your new idea, and like where you're at. Honestly,
right.
I look forward to watching your stuff and seeing that blow up, for real. So, but I'm going to go ahead. We're just going to wrap this episode up, and you can go on about your evening. So, but really, I'm going to put your links down. You don't have a website, do you?
No.
Nope, not yet. Okay, so you're on Threads. Your book's on Amazon and IG, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, y'all, those links are going to be in the description. Please check them out. Support Daniel, support his writing, and also like his push to start putting more positivity out there on social media. A little more quote unquote mental health awareness. I know we're all aware, but we need to start doing things like what Daniel's doing. Start letting people know there's other men out there going through the exact same things. We can hear it over and over. You're not alone. I'm alone unless I'm talking to you. Then I'm in my room, I'm in my head. So we need to do a much better job as a society being there. That's kind of the next step, I think, for all these teenage girls half naked on social media saying, "Oh, it's so sad, men." Okay, be there for the man, and men, stop busting each other in the balls when we want to talk about how old Yeller made us cry. It's sometimes deeper than that pup dying. So, but I'm gonna get off that soapbox. So, but again, dude, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and the willingness to even come on this newer podcast. And I hope that somebody listens, sees this, and checks your book out besides me. Okay. Again,
Thank you.
You have a good one, and I look forward to talking to you even more.
Yeah, me too.
And next time, I'll do less talking. You can do more.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, but thanks for listening to this episode of Real Talk and Fiction. And I will see you guys or won't see you, but I'll be talking to you guys soon.
That kind of wraps up this episode of Real Talk and Fiction. If you enjoyed today's discussion, make sure to follow the podcast, please, so you never miss an episode. And if something resonated with you, share it. Share it with a friend. It helps me more than you guys know. If you'd like to support the show and my writing, you can always join me on Patreon For honest, I'm thinking I believe as little as $1 a month. Your support's going to help me keep creating, and in return, you guys are going to receive exclusive updates, behind the scenes content, as well as early access to some new projects. So, check it out. Just head on over to Patreon, search Edward. I'm sorry. Search Bowers Inc. B as in boy, OWERSINK. And you should be able to find me there. Also, I think somewhere on this podcast, possibly on the YouTube channel, I've got the links shared there. And if you love a good thriller, don't forget to check out my books. They're available on Amazon. All right, just search Edward Bowers in the search bar, and it should pull up everything I've written and published. You can also find all the details at my website, which is edwardbowersofficial.com. It's kind of a basic website, but I'm working on it. Okay, bear with me. But thanks for tuning in, y'all. Just stay real. Keep turning the pages of your own story. And I'll see you guys next time, all right?